When we think of deserts, we think of places defined by what they lack. But what happens when that landscape of scarcity is suddenly, and I mean violently, overwhelmed by abundance? Well, that's the incredible paradox we're diving into today, the desert megastorm. All right, so the normal state of a desert is basically a waiting game. Every single living thing there has evolved to master the art of deprivation. It's a world built on a rhythm of absence, of silence, and of scorching heat. And that's the big question, isn't it? What on earth happens when a place built on drought gets a whole year's worth of rain, or more, in a single day? The answer, as you'll see, is part catastrophe and part absolute miracle.
Okay, so first up, a world of absence. To really get what the storm does, we first have to wrap our heads around the desert's default setting. It's a landscape of subtraction, It's defined by what isn't there.
And that brings us to the violent arrival. Now, here's the thing you gotta understand. A huge amount of rain in a desert is way, way more dangerous than it is anywhere else. The ground itself, it's just not ready for it. And the reason why is something called hydrophobic soil. What a fantastic term, right? The ground is literally water-fearing. After these long droughts, the soil gets baked and sealed by minerals. So when a massive amount of rain finally comes, it can't soak in. It just runs right off like water on a tabletop. And just think about the scale of this for a second. A desert that might get, say, 50 millimeters of rain in an entire year can suddenly get hit with 200 millimeters. That's 4 times its annual average in one day. The land is physically incapable of absorbing that much water, and that's when you get these explosive flash floods.
The result is just pure, raw power. A single megastorm can do the geological work of centuries in just a few hours. I'm talking carving new canyons, moving boulders the size of houses, and totally reshaping the landscape. It's geologic time, but on fast forward.
But all that violence is only half the story. Now we get to the really incredible part, the explosive awakening. Because you see, underneath all that sand and rock, the desert isn't empty. Not at all. It's packed with dormant life just waiting for this exact trigger.
The storm acts like a giant switch, flipping the entire ecosystem from one state to a completely different one. Buried seeds suddenly erupt into these massive superblooms. Dry, dusty soil crusts transform into spongy, living carpets, and in old, dry lake beds, tiny brine shrimp cysts that have waited for years, sometimes decades, suddenly hatch. The whole place just comes alive.
And the speed of it all is just astonishing. I mean, within hours, seeds that have been buried for ages crack open. Within just a few days, you get those famous superblooms that turn the desert into this unbelievable sea of color. And then, within weeks, the animal populations start to absolutely boom.
So this explosion of plants, it kicks off this incredible chain reaction of the food web. All of a sudden, pollinators have a paradise of nectar. Migratory birds will actually change their flight paths to stop at this pop-up oasis. Rodent numbers just surge, which means predators like foxes and hawks are having an absolute feast. Every single level of the food web just gets supercharged.
But, this whole event isn't just universally positive. Now we gotta look at how the land is truly reshaped. A megastorm is a massive shock to the system, and it has really complex consequences for the land, for the wildlife, and for people too. It really is a double-edged sword. On the one hand, yeah, the storm recharges these deep underground aquifers, which is fantastic for the long term. But on the other hand, those same floodwaters can drown burrowing animals in their homes and wash away the delicate soil crusts that actually help prevent erosion. And the human impact is just as polarized. For traditional nomadic cultures, a storm like this can be a total blessing. It refills rivers, it replenishes grazing lands, but for modern desert cities, places like Dubai or Las Vegas, it's a complete catastrophe. Their infrastructure just isn't built to handle that kind of water, and it leads to deadly floods and massive power failures. Now here's a really fascinating side effect. The sheer force of the water peels back layers of sand that have been sitting there, undisturbed, for thousands of years. It basically acts like a natural excavator, and sometimes it reveals ancient riverbeds, fossils, and even lost archaeological sites. Just amazing. So finally, we come to the storm's lasting fingerprints. Because eventually the water does evaporate, and that deep silence returns to the desert. But it does not go back to the way it was. The storm leaves a permanent mark on the land. And that legacy is profound. Those recharged aquifers will sustain life for years, even decades. There are brand new banks of seeds buried in the soil, just waiting for the next big rain. The very shape of the land itself, its dunes, its canyons, has been changed. The desert's future has been fundamentally rewritten by this one event. And this brings us right back to the core idea, doesn't it? The megastorm literally compresses time. You're getting centuries of geological erosion in a matter of hours, and years of biological growth in a matter of days and weeks. It is an entire ecosystem in fast forward.
And all of this leaves us with a critical and frankly pretty urgent question for the future. As our climate becomes more and more extreme, storms like this might become more common. So the question is, are we about to witness the violent, unpredictable redrawing of the world's great deserts?